This conference will now be recorded.
So again, thank you very much for joining us today. This is actually a demonstration that we originally wanted to do live here at the Egemon Airfield, but due to COVID-19 and other things, we've had to do it this way. So the gist of today is actually giving you some knowledge and know-how and the experience we've had of installing a Satcom terminal on board one of our UAVs and integrating it, and then doing some operations with it as well. We're hoping it's going to be a beneficial and educational demonstration and event for you. And so what I'd like to do first is to give you a presentation of robot aviation, followed by Harald's presentation of answer technologies. Then we'd like to go a bit into the Pacis-6 project, which has been the basis of our development efforts here to incorporate the Satcom terminal and lessons learned from there. We'd like to go a bit into ISR operations and generally how they can and are conducted. Then we'd like to show videos of the UAS flight itself from a small operation we've had here. And this will show videos from the aircraft through the Satcom terminal and everything in general. We've tried to make the video so that it gives you a generic feeling of how it would have been if you had been here in person. And then it will be followed by Valentine's presentation of the Envision concept that they have for the European Space Agency. And we'll finally do a conclusions and Q&A session. So then, yes?
We have one more person joined that I'd like to be introduced, Don Richard.
Hello, sorry for being so late.
Yeah, Don Richard used to work for Answer and he built 2 drones for us. And he's like, I can say with a compliment, crazy about drones, I guess. And you have several positions related to UAVs, and you're partly guilty, partly to credit for us being so involved in these big drones.
I declare guilt.
Welcome, Don Richard. It's good to hear your voice again.
Thank you so much, Errol. It's great to be here. I'm currently sitting at Ski Airport, so there won't be any flying today, but we just had to tie everything down here. So I'm really excited about this event.
Good. Now you can. This is be second best for you then.
Definitely, I'm very excited.
Good. So I'll then change the presentation. So now I will give you a short presentation of our company, Robot Aviation. I will be using a slightly older presentation. I hope that's okay. So Robot Aviation is a company that's been in this business for a few years, and we have experience and of both developing our airframes and also integrating the equipment that goes on board in them to make a complete UAS system, actually. And that's what we take our pride in, is that we're able to provide complete systems to everybody else in the world who needs such unmanned aircraft and all the capabilities that they're able to provide. We have 3 locations today. We're based out of Egemon in Norway, and you can see both the winter view and also the summer view. We're lucky enough that we have an airfield right in front of our doorstep. And we also have facilities in Poland where we do most of the airframe design and composites production and rapid prototyping. We also have software development in Sweden. And this is our location in Norway. We have access to this fantastic airstrip, and we're able to do BLOS tests nearby as well. And we have different kinds of customers nearby, and also operators and developers such as FLIR, Norwegian Titanium, and others as well. We've had customers throughout the world and recent demonstrations both here in Norway and also abroad. So that's now becoming more and more difficult with the travel restrictions, etc. But we're still trying to cope with it. We've had this idea where we actually start off with talking to the customer and letting them choose one of the UAV platforms that we have. And then depending on their needs, they can choose to employ different types of payloads depending on what their mission is. And then we will talk together with them to choose the type of data link that they need. Sometimes you don't need such a long-range data link, but sometimes you need such equipment such as a Satcom terminal in order to give you the versatility and also the range that you need. Same thing with the ground control stations as well. We have different ones that we are able to provide. What we don't do ourselves, but what we have good relationships with and third parties who are working with us are operators who will operate the drones if the customer does not want to do it themselves. And we also have companies that will do analysis depending on what kind of data is being captured. So here is the payload example. On one of our smaller aircraft, we can choose different type of payloads, whether it's just a EO gimbal or one with IR or a multispectral solution and other things as well. That's necessary. We have also a 4G base station that we've used as well. That's perhaps an atypical example, but it's still one that works. And we have 3 aircraft mainly today that we're marketing. One is the FX-10. That's the smallest of them all, and its middle brother is FX-20, and the larger of the 3, the FX-450, which we've used for this project. We also have our own ground control station software that is NATO standard compliant for 4586 for controlling UAVs, and we use that on some of our platforms as well. So here's the FX-10. It's a hand-launched variant. Weighs only about 6.5 kilos. It's highly portable, and our newest, let's say, version goes into a backpack with all the equipment, including the antennas and ground control station, and of course, obviously, the aircraft as well. So everything you need to operate the aircraft goes into a backpack, and you can carry it with it into the field. Has a range of about 30 kilometers out and 30 kilometers back, with a good safety margin as well. Here it says 2 hours, but we've tested it to about 3 hours, fully functional. So that's the new configuration, gives it about 3 to 3.5 hours. Mainly used by defense forces and also security agencies. We're also looking at further developing the software so that it will follow convoys and do a convoy watch as well, or patrol boat watch if that's the thing. Again, here's a ground control station that we have. It's NATO standard 4586 compliant. You can use it to control UAVs that are able to have this interface as well, and both automatic launching and landing, and full control of the UAV and the video as well. We have a handheld version as well of this, as well as a more rugged solution. The FX-20 is the middle brother, as I like to call it. Has about 4 hours endurance. It flies relatively fast, so it can cover ground much quicker. Due to its kind of wing shape, we require a catapult for it to be launched, but that goes into a very small case and is also relatively portable. So this aircraft gives it quite good range, as well as the necessary speed to, if you need some dash speed to get to the area. It does have very low noise signature. We had one customer here from one governmental agency who we took him out to the field, and he didn't know the drone was loitering above him at relatively low height. I think it was about 300 feet or 250 feet, and right above us, and it was, you wouldn't know it if you didn't know it was there actually. So of course here it's painted orange, a bit highly visible for testing purposes, but once you paint it kind of low vis gray, it also has a relatively low visual signature as well. And the 450 is the largest UAV that we have, about 20 hours endurance. It's kind of a shape of a small manned aircraft, wingspan of 7 meters, and a maximum takeoff weight of about 200 kilograms. So this is the aircraft that we used for the Pacis-6 project. We see that such aircraft can be used to have a relatively cost-efficient solution for maritime surveillance and monitoring. Just use the map of Norway here. You can see quite large areas can be covered using each one of these drones with a good backup as well for range. So that gives you a versatility that is much more cost efficient than using a P8 or a P3 for that matter. And but it's also not intending to replace any manned aircraft, but it's more of a something one can use to as a kind of stopgap, capability that's supposed to complement the manned aircraft. After all, these aircraft cannot yet do everything that we want, but much more efficient, cost efficient than perhaps the American larger brothers, let's say. We've had a system demonstrator that we did together with Telenor, where we incorporated a 4G base station in order to illuminate an area that did not have mobile coverage, to show that this was a capability that emergency forces could use in order to establish communication in an area that wasn't there from before. This happens in Norway relatively often. We have landslides. We don't have earthquakes here, but we have landslides and also flom, which is what's it called in English? It's too much water somewhere, and you lose electricity and you lose communications capability in these areas, and also emergency personnel have a difficult time responding and also getting communications back to headquarters or whoever's conducting the rescue operation, let's say. So this is an opportunity to establish communications on the spot very quickly. We were meant to fly it at Svalbard, but unfortunately we had to do a demonstration here at Egemoen instead. So now I will give the word to Harald, who will present on technologies for us. Harald, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm looking for the permission to share content.
Permission granted.
Okay. Does this look okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. So yeah, welcome to Answer Technologies. So we're focusing on what I call critical visual communications via satellite, whether from big drones, small drones, or other platforms that is or can be connected to a satellite network. So our focus areas are basically represented through this Venn diagram here, with intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, situational awareness as one need, coming from UAVs or cameras that are flying, which is the prime focus, and communicated via communications, which is exactly the core focus of this project. Part of the problem, or part of the challenge, and also part of the opportunity is that we see an incredible growth in video resolution. Since Apple and YouTube started their services, Apple came with video, I think, in the 3rd generation iPhone around 2008. I think YouTube started video in 2006. At that time, the video resolution was 240 by 320 pixels. 10 years later, it was 8K video, which is 200 times more precision. While, for example, the satellites that we are targeting in this project, Inmarsat L-band satellites, have been up there in space all the time. So this is creating an increasing bandwidth gap. We all have seen during the pandemic, for example, video conferencing when someone says, "Can you please turn off the video to save bandwidth?" It's become a commonplace word, the bandwidth issue. And we don't see that these trends are changing. You know, the sensors keep growing. I think Canon, Nikon, Samsung, Sony, and Apple and others are all going to continue to evolve their sensor capabilities. And in fact, IEEE Spectrum highlights we might be facing the biggest jump in resolution yet with quantum dot sensors. They have the capability to be 1 million times more densely packed. So in the same area, you can have 1 million times higher resolution, basically. So obviously, this will pose communication challenges in the future. It's worth noting, I think, that I don't know if most people are aware, but 20, 30 years ago, we're using film and slides. And film and slides have around 30, 40 megapixel resolution. So we're still usually below the resolution we had almost a generation ago, in spite of all the developments we've had in the last years. So this poses problems. A UAV pilot told me at a conference I attended, basically he had a problem that he needed to share photographs of search objects to the rescue part of the search and rescue operation team. And he was struggling with passing those pictures along and said we'd spend minutes, many minutes, that could be really critical in situations like those we're targeting, where people might be freezing to death for hypothermia and things. And he cited many times they find people with only minutes left to live. So he made this statement to the audience in his presentation: too little bandwidth can kill, when it delays our response to critical content. And critical situations include, for example, search and rescue operations, forest fires, and many situations. And in fact, usually you don't gain anything special by delaying information and having it in less precision. For drones, the robot aviation drone, for example, has an operating range of 1,000 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, Errol, while the typical radio link can maybe be 100 kilometers if it's a good link. So if you add satellite communication to this, you can operate, 10 times longer radius, roughly. That's 100 times more area that you can cover with satellite communications. And if you have your ISR target away from there, I have to thank Inmarsat and Blood for this slide. It's good. So you have the little object far away from the ground station, and you can go there and you can do a search and rescue operation, etc. in this area. But in this case, you will need tactical operational photos and video while in flight. It is far too late to bring back a memory card or a hard drive and look at this later. So part of the issues with UAVs is that they're typically limited by radio links, but satellite communication provides ubiquitous coverage everywhere that the operating range of the drone is. But Satcom comes with some drawbacks. It can be quite expensive for some markets, and obviously the capacity is limited. It's also limited due to the power, size, and weight, because in my experience, the first thing drone guys do when you give them something is to put it on a weight. How much does this weigh? And you don't want to have a much bigger satellite antenna because you have a software solution that requires more bandwidth, because a bigger satellite antenna might require a bigger drone, which might require a bigger airport or bigger operational regime around it, etc. So I'm sure both Errol and Dan Richard can fill in on these kinds of concerns. And then finally, the speed of transmission and the precision of the transmission are important, because if you compromise by compressing data too much, there is a risk that you might miss that person on the ground you're looking for, or the critical object, or the threat in defense situations, etc. Fortunately, there is a solution. There's a new COBAM UAV satellite terminal and a service from Inmarsat. So this service is called Swift Broadband UAV from Inmarsat, and the terminal is called COBAM Aviator UAV 200. It should have been Aviator in there. Sorry for that. The capacity of this terminal is up to 200 kilobit per second. So most people have been thinking about satellite communications for telemetry, in which case you don't need this kind of data rate. But if you're looking to do video, then you certainly would be looking for something in the order of 1 megabit, maybe even 2. So some people are aware that if you want to stream Netflix or things like this at home, or if you go to the DVB standards with broadcast, high definition requires 4 to 5 megabit per second for proper quality. And here you're looking for 200 kilobit per second. That's 5% of the bandwidth. And then we need high resolution photos and video for critical content. There are different subscription regimes with this, but if you're flying a drone a certain amount of time and you're having like a medium quality, medium data rate subscription, it could amount to $100,000 per year per drone, maybe even more if you send much more. And for non-military operations, this is important to be aware of. We had a project some years ago with Shell Airspace, and they were thinking of using drones, or looking to be using drones for oil and pipeline gas monitoring. And I think they said that their normal helicopter cost was $30 per kilometer. So this means if you're streaming or transmitting data through a satellite link, it should be far less than $30 per kilometer to not be the dominating cost. Other issues, these satellite terminals, they typically work more or less like a normal smartphone in a way. You don't know exactly what data rate you're getting unless you purchase a guaranteed subscription mode. But in contrast to what we concern ourselves about with smartphones, because they typically have enough bandwidth, so you don't really care so much. But here, if 200 kilobit per second is maximum, you do care if it's 100 and 130 or 87 or 59 or something like this. You definitely want to utilize that bandwidth to the best extent. And then another part of the challenge, of course, in developing a solution for these kinds of platforms is there is a radio resource management system. This radio resource management system basically works on what they call a fair bandwidth distribution. And fairness is often defined as if you have data to send, we will give you bandwidth. So then you need a queue, a buffer, to indicate that you have data to send, and this data then delays and introduce jitter into the transmission link. So all of these things, they create challenges that we are happy to solve, basically. So what makes our approach different than many other approaches? Well, my background is signal processing. I have developed compression solutions for both audio and video and images. I have also been working many years, almost 20 years, 19 years, in a satellite communications company. So my background is both in designing modems and trying to get more bits per second across the network, and compressing data to use less bits per second. And therefore, I can claim that I've been solving the wrong problem in a way. This is related to rate distortion theory and Shannon capacity, etc. And all engineers love this stuff. But if you go to an operations center, you quite likely will meet a captain or a colonel or someone in the military operation, for example, who says, I don't care anything about bits and pixels. I need to see what I need to see in time for me to respond to it. So it's all about the content. What I need to see as a content in time for me to respond to it means the effect of the content cannot come too late, needs sufficient quality for me to make intelligible assessments out of this. And the two old pictures of the old guys here is on the right side, you have Claude Shannon, who's like the father of information theory, who published all these papers in 1948 that gave us the guidance for how to develop our technology. But his colleague, Warren Weaver, placed this in the context already in the next year, 1949, and said communication happens at 3 levels. It's about how precisely can symbols represent how precisely can symbols be transmitted, and how precisely does the transferred symbols convey the desired meaning, the content, and then finally, what will the effect of these messages be on the operation? And if you work down that ladder and say, if it doesn't have any effect, then it doesn't really matter how you transfer it because it shouldn't be transferred at all. So our software is designed along this 3-layer communication model. So it allows you to, it's more than just compression. It's the software that allows you to focus bandwidth on relevant content. And by somehow cherry picking exactly that orange life jacket in the water, for example, or the people that might be stuck in the forest fire, with reference to my previous slide, then you can save 99% bandwidth. And most people ask me, how does your software know what's relevant? Well, typically it doesn't. This is up to the users to pick exactly what is relevant. But it can also be supported and augmented by computer vision and AI, of course. An example, taken from a smaller drone. In this case, there's a forest, there's sky, there's fields, but there's something specific there. And then you can pull that part of the content from the drone as it's flying. Or if you're recording video, 1 minute of high definition video becomes 150 megabytes. That could take many hours to transmit over slow link. So this storyboard here represents 2 minutes of video, for example, and that's 1,000 times smaller. And from a received video clip like this, you can pull exactly the part of the video that might be interesting for the operation. Next, we talked about the 2 different modes of operation for the data transmission. Either it's best effort or it's a guaranteed rate. So we have developed 2 modes, one that supports streaming, which is constant data rate, and the video to the left represents, I'm aware that the video over this GoToMeeting probably isn't what I'm looking at my screen, but the video to the left is a smooth 10 frames per second video at 150 kilobit per second. Well, the other one is like 1 frame per second, but much higher quality, and this quality is independent of the data rate, basically. So if you have less data for a few moments, then it will be updating the image a little bit less frequently. But for operations like flood assessment, forest fire assessment, search and rescue, if you're getting an update every 1 or 2 or 3 seconds, you're probably capturing most of the intelligence in any case. Let's see. And this slide, I have a link to this at the end, basically shows what you can achieve. This video is a test video. It's a 4K resolution video, and it seems crazy to start with 4K when you have 200 kilobit per second, but it shows the quality you can achieve. And if you want to spend the transmission capacity of a certain part of the photograph or in the video, semantic parts that make more relevance for you, more impact, you can always pull regions of interest. So we're getting HD-like video on the UAV 200. Network is important because many are concerned about getting the video down to the pilot, but quite often the pilot may not be the end destination for the video. So the system architecture is, simply put, you have a UAV sender, which consists of a camera, gimbal, EO sensor, and then you have the satellite communications, and in the middle you have a computer with our software that takes the video feed, compresses this in a clever way, and sends that into the terminal, which then sent to a server which is hosted in a network. And then there will be a receiver that can control how the video is sent and can feed back to the sender. I need more focus on rates per second, bits per second, less, more, whatever, frame rates, resolution. Stop it for the moment it's something interesting to save money or something. And then you will have viewers. Viewers can also view the video, but they cannot control it. And these viewers can also be on smartphones. And an architecture that we've been demonstrating within Marsat in the context of this project on the tour that was called Operations Beyond the Horizon, you can see how this could be depicted graphically. There could be a drone flying, sending data to a satellite. You might have field teams that need to view this in the field. Some might control it in the forward operating base, etc. This is like real world. In principle, the payload looks like this. There will be a computer, not necessarily exactly this one, that connects to high-resolution photograph cameras or video gimbals, or both, one or the other, or both. In this project, we have focused on the video streaming part. You want to have a GPS so you can geotag the video, and you want to connect to the satellite service, but you might also connect to 3G, 4G, or local radio links. Could be even a Wi-Fi, but it could be a proprietary radio link that you can stream down as long as you are within the line of sight mode. Airtime, we mentioned that can be a prohibitive factor. It's important to use it well. So the streaming at low rates consists of two modes. It's a stable, high-quality video stream at a constant rate, or high-quality images, as we saw. And then you can stream, if you want, the photographs with small previews and then full regions of interest. But you could also just do the video clips and the storyboard. And if you just want to check that everything's okay from time to time, this will be the most cost-effective way. And then if you need something, you can get that part later. One use case for this is drones that are meant for drop, carry payloads that are dropped, like medicine or Amazon packets or whatever. So you definitely want to have a video exactly of the delivery, but you don't necessarily need video for the whole, flight duration. So I think our software that we call Rido, it offers the most effective photo-video communication, high precision using least bandwidth, and it lets users prioritize specifically the communication bandwidth on what you want. And it can reduce network bandwidth requirements by up to 99%, but still give you access to the full precision content. And it speeds up the delivery of the relevant part. So we're so happy to have done this project with Robot Aviation, in Marsat, with COBAM, and in the context of ESA, because it was a great success. I feel we flew this for more than 1 hour. And we have put together a small video that you can, if you want to bring out your smartphone and scan this QR code, you can view it in full quality. Håkon, will you paste the link maybe on the chat, please? So it could also, you can click on this. And I'm not sure if this will play well for you, but I'm going to play this one anyway. If it doesn't play well, feel free to use the link. This is the drone getting ready.
But Harald, don't you want to do this afterwards?
We can do that afterwards if you want, Harald.
Let's do it afterwards.
You're the boss, Harald. If you want me to wait with this, we can do it.
Let's wait with it, because then you can show how the results will vary depending on how much bandwidth is available.
Super. I'm happy to do that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harald. And okay, so before we go into videos, I'd like to talk a bit about the project, speak a bit about the project, and the lessons we've learned from, it's more of a technical perspective, from integrating the terminal and also getting this capability through the Satcom basically solution. So a bit short about the Pacis-6 project, Pacis-6 project. It's a European Space Agency project, and Inmarsat is our project lead. We have one more Norwegian member, although there are other members as well, including members from the UK and Romania. And that Norwegian company is Ansur, as you just heard. And our Ansur and our participation is partially sponsored by through the Norwegian Space Agency. And Pacis-6 is a precursor project for it's a new type of platform pooling and sharing of commercially available Satcom services to be used as a kind of a one-stop shop, so that if a governmental agency needs to use a Satcom service, no matter who's providing that capability, they can go through this portal and basically sign up for a service that has a Satcom terminal and an app, or a UAV or a specific type of solution that might exist through this portal. It's going through the making of this for basically providing secure Satcom services for governmental agencies, mainly targeted towards European government end users, but also I assume it will be a global availability as well. Valentin, sorry if I said something wrong, but you get a chance to correct it later on if that's the case. So what was Robot Aviation's role in Pacis-6? We were to create a design solution by incorporating this COBAM Aviator 200 terminal in our aircraft, and also develop a type of service concept, and also have demonstrations towards the end of the project. As you know, because of COVID-19, the live demonstrations have been reduced, and so we're having this live event instead of a flight demonstration itself. And our own goals were to successfully integrate both hardware and software for the Satcom subsystem that we would create, and also further understand how these systems work on board UAVs. What are the beneficial parts, what are the drawbacks, and how they can best be used, how to avoid it to be used in certain situations, etc. And understand customer operations a bit better, and also develop a service approach in line with the GovSatcom approach. And we also thought we could use it as a baseline to export to one of our other systems as well. So that was our goal from one of our goals from the beginning. So what is supposed to work here? So we're supposed to put this terminal on top of the aircraft, in the aircraft somewhere. The ground control station used to control the drone or give commands to is supposed to communicate with the drone through the Satcom terminal. We was also communicating through a ground station, and there's a core network. We weren't sure if we were going to use a terminal next to the ground control station as well. That would create a double hop. But these were thoughts that were in our mind, and also we had to get the data to the end user somehow, which Unserv was helping us with. So we had a lot of challenges ahead. One was creating the design itself. Space in the UAV is very limited. Integration efforts. We have regulations against us. We have EMI issues and connectivity, and also testing and the airspace as well. And later on, we also got thrown the COVID-19 challenge, as everyone else has. But these were the challenges ahead of us. So from a space constraint, we suddenly had to incorporate different elements, a Satcom terminal, another type of computer on board, of which we had to choose a more industrial solution rather than a, let's say, military, more rugged solution. More GNSS antennas, IMUs, relays, and power units. So we had to find a space for all of this extra equipment as well. And we had an initial plan, but we had to change that. So finding space in aircraft is never easy, because space is usually to a minimum, kept to a minimum, because less space means basically less airframe, and usually that means less weight, which is, like Harald said, nobody wants extra weight on the aircraft. That's the aerospace engineer's nightmare. And we also had to integrate with existing equipment, from everything from switches to existing data links on board the aircraft. We had to integrate it with the autopilot, with existing GNSS receivers. Had to find a power solution, integration with a gimbal and camera, as well as other types of hardware. So regulations in Norway, we're blessed in the sense that we are able to do BLOS flights, but unless you get a no-fly zone, they have to take space. They have to be flown at 120 meters or less above ground level, which can be, or usually can be, a bit challenging the further away you get from your point of departure. We still have a permit covering Satcom testing on board the aircraft, so that was really good. And we found a good and safe solution to fly BLOS without breaking the rules, but also without needing to have a no-fly zone dedicated to us at a certain point in time, which could take months to receive from the aviation authorities. So we found a good solution that gave us the flexibility that we needed, and where we could still do a BLOS flight or BLOS flights. So we also had EMI issues, and there were some equipment that were more susceptible to the Satcom terminal, which is using relatively high wattage, and we had to move the Satcom terminal from its intended, originally thought of location to the nose area because of EMI issues, and also had to find certain solutions to elevate it higher than some of the other equipment, etc. So we did an EMI analysis and found the best location for the Satcom, not just from an EMI perspective, but also from the Satcom's own perspective of receiving and sending data to the satellite in space. Connectivity could be an issue. We're initially unfamiliar with using a satellite service, so this was actually the first for us. So it took some time getting used to that, handling this type of connection. And we also had to handle C2 commands and telemetry data in a different kind of way. Before, we didn't have to necessarily split it, but here our colleagues worked quite hard to find a good way of separating the data, the C2 data, from the overall data stream. And testing in airspace was also sometimes could be a challenge, especially during winter time. It gets quite foggy here, and then you can't see anything, and it makes it a bit dangerous to fly. And when it's nice weather, manned aircraft want to go out flying, so the airspace is not always available. So it wasn't a huge challenge, obviously, over the summertime, but this was something we had to be flexible with and go and fly whenever we could, basically. Again, COVID-19, nobody at work, thank God, was directly affected, but we did have travel restrictions, and so we couldn't travel to or from our two other locations, from and to Eggemon, and this made it actually a challenge for developing and testing hardware. I mean, it's easier to do it with software, but if you want to develop and test hardware, doing it remotely is very difficult. So we took actually a bit longer than we had hoped for to accomplish what we did. But this was an additional hurdle that was thrown at us, basically. But we overcame it, and that's the important part. And so we got our solution in the end, where the Satcom is placed in the nose of the aircraft, and it has a slightly elevated from what could be said rest of the equipment, so it sees the satellite most of the times, and I say most of the times because there can be some hindrance from the wingtips, and also depends how aggressively you bank the aircraft. You could lose sight of the satellite, mostly unless you're flying over the equator. So the further north you go, the less of inclination the satellite will be at, and you have to be, let's say, gentler with your banks for a geostationary satellite. But we got a place for everything. We made a new nose cone and a cover there, and hence the little bulb above the otherwise normally relatively flat nose cone. And our colleagues worked quite hard to fit in everything in the little space available. And scripts were written to manage command and control commands and telemetry on the aircraft and the ground equipment. And this was not something we have normally done, so it was quite hard work and also difficult, but we managed in the end. And we also decided to use 4G for the ground part, for connecting the ground control station to the internet, basically to get the connection from the satellite to the ground terminal and then the GCS. Normally we have a direct link from the ground control station to control the aircraft to the aircraft, and we don't have to think about this part. So this is an additional implementation that we had to do, which we normally don't. But we got the aircraft in the air, and it was flying beautifully, and it handled quite well. We had a few test flights, and in the end, we managed to get everything working without interference, mostly, and we carried it out quite well. So we managed to do the design, the new design, and the overall integration successfully. We constructed what we needed to be done on the aircraft and added that. We've done documentation of all of this, and we've had successful ground and flight tests. So I think the whole team has been quite happy. But there are 3 people who are kind of heroes of this project, and that's Pavel on the left-hand side, who is the technical lead, and Adam, as you also heard in the beginning, who's working, he's in the middle there, working with the autopilot especially, and getting the 450 to fly, generally speaking. And then we have Ravi, who is working as also communications expert, as well as gimbals and also writing scripts. So he's on the right-hand side there. So these are the 3 heroes of the project I wanted to mention as well. So if you have any questions, write them down, because we have a question Q&A session towards the end. But for now, I will continue with my other presentation, which is speaking about general ISR operations. So I'll just pop that up now. And following ISR operations, we will go and view the video. So I just wanted to give some information on ISR operations and what it is. It's a term that's used widely today in relation to UAVs and UASs. It stands for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and it's a mission usually used by governmental agencies and military forces for anything from border patrol to fishery protection, maritime surveillance, intelligence gathering, surveillance over the battlefield, general reconnaissance, observation, and also actually for doing observation post natural disasters or during natural disasters even as well. But mostly it's for governmental agencies. This is the term is being used for. So Valentin, you can be happy that the first aerial surveillance reconnaissance used was done by French forces, it seems, in 1794. Here's actually a painting, and you can see up there above the blue flag, above the general, you can see a balloon there in the background. So this was used to view the enemy formations, and this information was given to the ground in, they didn't have data links back then. So you had to write something and draw it while in the balloon, and they would drop it through the line, and then the courier would take it to headquarters. So that was the first time this was used. And also the first remaining aerial photograph is from Boston Harbor from 1860. So these two kind of technologies now bring us towards UAV and aerial reconnaissance and surveillance as well. So later on, of course, all these technologies developed. Balloons become airplanes, and cameras became better. And you had now specifically designed aircraft to take pictures, generally speaking, of observations of the Earth or military forces. And this went into the modern era as well, from the Japanese maritime surveillance plane there in picture 1 to a specified F4. This is an RF4. I think it's a Korean one, used for taking pictures as well as a U-2, which is a famous aircraft. For some of you might have seen the movie with Tom Hanks. There's a RAF aircraft for electronic intelligence in picture 4. So all of these are very dedicated aircraft. And finally, you get the technology brings you to the unmanned aircraft world as both technologies in camera technology, but also data links, control, command and control, and electronics has become so much smaller that this is something that can be used. ISR today has a focus on optics especially, although other data sources are also used, but optics especially still. And the mantra is to detect, identify what you're seeing, analyze it, and then later on observe what is being done with it as well. Camera control is very important to get the right picture or the right video at the right time. And how you use it is very task dependent, and people are trained just for this task especially. We've also seen ourselves that communication with the end user is very important to know what type of data and information to bring back. And sometimes the approach is quite similar, but how you want the picture to be taken, or the video for that matter, will depend heavily on the task itself. So you usually have, for a reconnaissance, let's just use that as an example, you have 4 types of getting the information. One is pinpoint, where very detailed, coordinates are given, and for a specific place, and a line search, and it's done area search as well, and area cover. I'll go into these in 1 second. So pinpoint is for a specific location, might be in this case a bridge, you know exactly where it is, and you want to ensure that this is a sensor cover 100 meters around the point to capture the whole area around this point of whatever it might be. You might have to increase that area as well, of course. But so you send the drone to a specific location close to it, and you know where the area is, you know the precise location and the coordinates, and you actually do a video and also a photographic coverage of this location. So that's one type of mission. The other reconnaissance mission is a line search, where you know the beginning and end of a specific spline, let's say, and usually it's some kind of a road or a communications pathway. It can be a waterway for that matter, but usually is where you know you expect something to be at, or you want to make sure that something doesn't enter and exit without you knowing it. The third one is area search, where you define a certain area by 4 coordinates, and you know there is something of interest in this area, or you expect it to be there, and it's of flying around and making sure that you know where to find it. So you can do this very methodologically. You can scan it in a certain way, or you can fly to the point where you think it's most likely where you have to find the object. So this requires very attentive, obviously, observation of the video stream as well. And so once you locate the area of interest, you can take more dedicated images and video of it. And the final one is area cover. Again, you have 4 coordinates. This is an area you just want to cover. You're not necessarily looking for something specific, but you want to map each and every square kilometer of this area. So you just do usually you just do a pattern search, or not a search, but a flight pattern where you ensure that you cover each and every square kilometer of this place. Very methodological kind of flight path. Typical flight patterns for this might be a racetrack type of or a standoff type of flight pattern. It's usually used when the airspace or threats even do not allow you to get closer to what you're trying to observe. And the camera might also, might not be able to look or be pointed at a certain way. In this case, the camera could be a synthetic aperture radar that's looking sideways, and you have to fly it. You have to fly the aircraft in a racetrack pattern to get a good view of the object you're looking at and we're trying to track. Otherwise, a circular or an orbital pattern is used where the object is in the middle, and if you have a large enough radius, you can kind of slowly move around the object and track and get good video and images of it. There is a benefit of flying higher, as you get higher footprint of the ground you're looking at. You need a better zoom for seeing things better, of course, but it doesn't mean that you get twice the efficiency in a way, because the things you see on the side you'll see it from more of an oblique angle. So if you need 2 passes or 3 passes on a lower altitude, you still might need to do 2 passes at a higher altitude. So there's a certain benefit of being much higher, but not usually it's not directly you cannot directly relate it to the altitude, because you might still need to do some lower passes anyway, or more passes. So for a 450 type adaptation, we're thinking of coastal monitoring duties, especially EMSA has such duties today, done by some Israeli systems. All of these aircraft on these pictures are very advanced. And there's a border control type mission in the US that the US border protection command is using. They're actually using Reapers for this, and also there's been the Coast Guard, some Coast Guard duties also being done on both ends of the border. Let's say the land border, both towards Canada, but also towards Mexico. They've been using this, and also they've been using drones for fire watch, for helping to contain fires, and also to detect any fires that might be actually bursting. So the 450 aircraft that you will see later on can be used for these duties as well, with some adaptation. What we've seen from what we have been observing, we're not actually experts of ISR type missions, but nonetheless, we see for national emergencies, for instance, we see that airspace issues must be solved. There must be rules being placed for an easier entry of drones for partaking into helping with national emergencies. Safety of flight is an issue. This must also be helped. Weather limitations usually are there more for drones than manned aircraft. Low altitude flights do not help with the safety of flight, as flying at 400 feet or lower is very risky, both for the drone and anybody below it, really, because it gives you such little time to react to anything that might be going wrong. We see that higher or increased autonomy is very important for self-adjustment, where the drone can make some, let's say, low-level decisions on its own, rather than the operator having to to take care of it at every point in time. This will also lower costs towards the future, where you can have one operator looking over or managing even 4 to 5 and more drones. Operating costs must be reduced for the end user, and the availability must be higher for quick deployment. And part of that is a bit of a chicken and egg game, as the more drones that are available, the quicker you can deploy them. But if you have very few drones available in the system, they might be preoccupied with other tasks and missions, and it might take a longer time for them to get deployed elsewhere. From a military perspective, we see that integration of parts or the whole network or parts of the network is crucial. How to actually operate the drone and get the best use out of it for the actual end user in the military network. We see that drones and UAVs will be part of a multi-sensor, multi-platform solution where you might have an EOIR type mission from one place, but also a synthetic aperture radar used somewhere else and electronic warfare somewhere else. And the UAV can be probably a good piece of the solution there on how to manage these different platforms. Rapid deployability, again, very important, getting to the location at the right time, at the right place. And also artificial intelligence tools for improved operations will be coming, I believe, very, very shortly, especially for image recognition, signal recognition, etc., from all the data that the drone is capturing. And we also see there is a need for higher collaboration between branches on operating the drones, as they can be used by the different military branches. All right. Thank you for following me so far. So now I will ask my colleague Pavel to start the video. And Pavel, I'll make you a presenter. Let's see.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you are seeing the video.
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you. So this is the Eggemon airfield where we are located at. It's a bit northwest of Oslo and north of Hønefoss. It's about, flight distance, I guess, about 40 kilometers from Oslo, not too far away. So again, we showed you some pictures earlier about our location. First, we will show you how the route was planned. The video you see is from the actual flight itself, but this is the UAV, how the flight path will be done. So just so you get an idea of what we're doing. So the UAV will take off and it will do some circular patterns. First, above the airfield, then it will go to the furthermost waypoint up here, just for a quick check to ensure that everything is working the way it's supposed to be working. Following that, it will return back to the airfield and also to the other waypoint that you can see kind of more towards the middle of the screen. Let me see if I have. So that's the other waypoint. You can see next to the aircraft, it says owned by GCS, FX450 Satcom GCS. We had a dedicated ground control station just for the Satcom operation itself. And then the Satcom GCS takes over the aircraft, and the aircraft's completely controlled by the Satcom ground control station. So once this is done, the aircraft will be sent to the northernmost waypoint and will be loitering around the waypoint there, and will be looking at a nearby area of interest, a region of interest, of a very suspicious looking bridge and the boats near there. So then the aircraft will be brought back and will be landing. So in order to give you a full kind of idea of how it is to prepare for the flight, we've also bring you some footage of the aircraft being brought out of the hangar and brought to the field. So just bear with us while the aircraft is being prepared. So here the ground personnel is ensuring the wingtips are not damaged during this assisted taxiing, and the aircraft is rolled on the taxiway and then on the runway and brought to the location that is required. So we have to bring with us some ground equipment as well that's necessary to be set up. So tables and chairs are part of that, but it's not a picnic. But standing here for hours, you need some back support as well. So the aircraft is being placed in the location. That's good. So now the tow is being removed. The cart parked there. So if one has a containerized solution, for instance, with the equipment in it permanently placed at a location, then of course one does not have to do a setup like this. We're doing a bit of additional setup due to the tests as well. So there's some additional equipment also here at this point. If you already have the equipment in place and ready to go, the usual pre-flight check is about 10 to 15 minutes. So not more than a small manned aircraft, general aviation aircraft, I would say. And we have the ground crew near the aircraft in the red vests, and the pilot is in yellow there. So here's a full power check on the aircraft. So then after these checks, the chocks will be removed and the aircraft will be prepared for takeoff. Then just a short taxi test and a brake test. So this is a view from one of the cameras installed on the aircraft itself. It's more for us to monitor the aircraft, or not monitoring, but reviewing after the flight. But it gives you a good idea of how the flight will be when you see it in the air. So then the taxi operator will make a call when we're ready. This is a view from the ground control station 2 that will be used to actually command and control the aircraft. The window up in the right-hand side is the view from the Aspiro software. So the Satcom is connected now, and this is the view that you see through the Satcom service, basically. And this is ground control station 3 we have just for reviewing stuff. The view you saw a second ago is now on your, yes, this view is on the top left-hand side. When we come back, you will see another view on the top right-hand side, which is first-person view camera that we were testing that day, which the tests weren't so good, so the pictures are quite bad from it, unfortunately. This is the software that the gimbal is using, the camera, and it's used to control the camera during flight. And also here's a window that the Cobham Aviator Terminal interface is shown. We're using the best effort data rate at this point, which means that we are using whatever data rate is available to us at the system at that time. And you actually can see the remove before flights tubes on the pitot tube covers here, and here's a handsome guy taking off the pitot tube covers. Now you will see it with the delay through the Satcom window. So the latency is about 2 seconds. It's about 2 to 3 seconds round trip. So the aircraft is ready and is now taking off, basically. So here you can now see the takeoff from the aircraft camera through the Satcom as well. Mind you, that day we had about 50 to 60 kilobits per second available to us. Actually, there's video from two separate flights here.
110.
And here Adam is reading, altitude and airspeed at this point to the pilot, so the pilot knows, because he cannot see it because he's only controlling the aircraft with his eyes. Once the aircraft is in orbit around the airfield, then the Satcom GCS was given the opportunity to take over the command and control of the aircraft. So now the aircraft is flying on its own, and you can see on the top left-hand corner is the Satcom view. Please disregard the view on the upper right-hand corner. That was a first-person camera that was not working that well, that we tested out, unfortunately. But here's a zoomed version of what the camera sees through the gimbal. And we also had a surprise, though. We had a manned aircraft following the UAV, and one of our engineers, Pavel Koshidel, also known as Maverick, was in this aircraft, and he took these good images and videos from the aircraft. So we just want to show you this as well, so you get an idea of the drone being in the air. So we use this the aircraft also as an external observer to detect any aircraft that might be flying towards the airfield without actually notifying anyone on radio. There are such cases, so we have to be extra vigilant when we're flying our UAVs. So for extra security measure, we have this aircraft as a third spotter in the air. It's a bumpy ride actually that day, so I think Pavel did a very good job keeping the aircraft in sight at all times. I think the aircraft is now moving towards towards its waypoint. It's going to cross the power line soon. I think the manned aircraft even stalled at one point, but our man did a very good job and still kept the video going. And I think in ghastly operations like this, it's quite difficult taking images and videos. So we're lucky that we had a good one on board. So this is again the fixed onboard camera. These recordings are captured once the aircraft has landed, because it's actually recorded onto a SD card. So these are not available during the flight, but only after the flight. But so the aircraft is now sent through a Satcom command to proceed to its waypoint, and to loiter around the airpoint once it gets there. Again, we have to fly relatively low so that we are approximately 120 meters above the ground. So the aircraft, I think, has now reached or getting close to reaching its waypoint, and will start loitering around this area. We intended to do more test flights. However, our constraints limited us to fewer test flights that we had hoped for. So here's a lake. It will, I think, will soon start to orbit close to. And you can see the gimbal is actually moving. I think it would look towards the northeast or eastwards towards an area called Järnåker, which is a local area. And we will then see videos from the Satcom. Here is a bit zoomed. I think there's a bit of a digital zoom used right here, but this is the kind of image you can expect with 50 kilobits per second bandwidth available. So our, let's say, our tests show that we still have some things to learn, but we've gotten good results. We have to get better at any EMI issues with the GNSS, and also connectivity with the satellite. We think should be improved a bit, so that's a bit on us as well. We had occasionally the signal will drop out a little bit, but then gets connected quite rapidly again. This happens more if the aircraft is not moving in a straight line. So this could be a number of reasons, which we will not go into here. But sometimes the signal will drop out and get connected again. So the more straight you fly and less the IMU directing the signal towards the satellite has to do, the better connectivity that we have achieved ourselves at least. So this will be improved. So these are not the best we have, but shows you what's also what you might also be able to get. So soon we will see a different view of both Asmira and the Cobham terminal. This is an expanded view. And the Asmira software lets you do different things, and you can have different settings. So you can have, like Harald explained, higher quality pictures, but at a reduced frame rate, or you can have a higher frame rate, but slightly reduced image quality. So this is the Yanok area that we are now seeing. And soon, again, if you look at the top left-hand corner, that's the view from Asmira, and that's what you should be concentrating on.
And Errol, this is 50 kilobit per second video only, so that's not bad.
That is correct. Yeah, that's not bad. I think it's very, very good, to be honest, with such low bandwidth. So soon we will be coming to this area, and our good operator will choose an area, a region of interest through the Asmira software. So you can see that the camera's, even though the aircraft's quite bumpy in the air because it's a bumpy day, the gimbal is quite fixed on its location, so you get a relatively stable view. And here our operator chooses the region of interest, which is this bridge and the boats next to it. And the Asmira software will then give you only this view and dedicate the bandwidth to capturing the details from this view. Now this is about 45 kilometers away, but earlier you could see cars passing on the bridge and also boats nearby. And also the house details, etc. So the aircraft at this point has done a number of orbits and will now be prepared to be sent back. So once the aircraft, this is an accelerated video, by the way, of the map. Once the aircraft is sent back, it will, once it gets close to the airfield, it will enter into a racetrack pattern above the airfield, so the pilot can take control over it and land the aircraft. This is done manually for this aircraft. So even with more, let's say, advanced UAVs that are in operation around the world, the landings and takeoffs are done by pilots close to the aircraft because the latency is too high to have direct commands through the Satcom to land and take off the aircraft. That's just it's a law of physics. So until you get autonomous landing and takeoff, which is possible but will require further development, this is done manually. So another good day. When you land safely, that's a good day. So then the aircraft is taxied back and gotten ready to be towed back after this type of operation. Thank you very much, Pavel. So also we're actually sharing screens, so the video playback is reduced a little bit. I have to say that as well, unfortunately. We'll try to look for a perhaps slightly better solution for next time. But thank you very much, Pavel. So that's then the video as well from the operation. I think I will now give the word to Valentine, who will present the Envision concept. After which we will go to the conclusions. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's say,
Can I share my screen?
I think you can.
Right. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Now we can.
Okay. Right. So you've seen a great application of usage of satellite communications. And in Inmarsat, we are a satellite operator and a satellite communication provider. We worked hand in hand with Robot Aviation and Answer to be able to get to this result, and we're very happy about this. But in Inmarsat, we're also aware that even though great services cannot be accomplished, the way to procure and manage satellite communication nowadays is a bit difficult. The way it's done usually can take time and be a bit cumbersome. Usually a user would call or email their local service provider for satellite communications. And maybe there is another service provider that is needed. And then if the service is not available, they would go to an operator. It can be quite long, and it kind of is counterproductive with the service that would be needed in maybe an emergency services or a monitoring situation where you need to use your satellite communication in a very timely manner. So during that project, Inmarsat developed a new solution, or that we're calling Envision. Envision is an acronym, and it stands for International Virtual Satellite Operator Network. And we really focused on the need of the user to provide more choice, more visibility, immediacy, flexibility, and control over the satellite communication that are being used. And we developed this new platform, so Envision, and it's a platform which I will show you, which enables a user to access any type of Satcom related services, getting one bill over the services procured, being able to monitor and control the services in a secure environment. So I'm going to show you the actual prototype of the platform that Inmarsat developed during that project, Pacis-6, that Errol mentioned before. So you can see here the homepage of the Envision platform. And if we place ourselves into that situation where you are in a need of Satcom communication to be used on your UAV, well, you could go on your catalog of services and then look at the right service that you need. In this particular case, it was a Swift Broadband UAV service from Inmarsat that was used. So you could click on the product, select the right configuration that you need, and then order this particular satellite service to use it, and then provision it and activate it. You can also purchase the answer software that is being used on this particular service, and maybe order it as a bundle with the UAV and the UAV service from Inmarsat and the software from Answer. So we have this catalog available for people that would know what would be needed, which service would be needed. But we also have the possibility for a user to plan for a mission in advance and know what it would require for this mission. So if, again, in that type of situation, you need a UAV to monitor a particular area, you would create a new mission. You would potentially select the area where you need to fly the UAV. So let's take an example. You can either put a circle over the area that you want to cover. You can draw a route, and you set it as a UAV area. And this is an air type of site. Next step, you select your requirement. You need a service for a UAV, you need video monitoring, and in that particular instance, you know exactly what terminal you will be using, and as we told before, it's a Cobalt Aviator UAV 200. You're able to select more requirement, or even select the specific data requirements, but let's just stick with that. And the platform would then provide you what service would be suitable and compatible with the Satcom used on your UAV. So from there, you can also select the particular service, and then you can see the service that you would need is pre-configured. If you're happy, you add it to your basket. You can also see that for that particular UAV monitoring requirement, we can recommend the software that would be useful for this particular application. And you would be able to purchase a license for the Esmira software from this unique platform and add it to your basket. You would select, okay, I want one license, and you would add it. If I have selected the fact that I would not have a particular terminal that I want to use, in that particular instance, you can see that I would have a specific terminal that would be recommended to me that would be compatible with that particular service. But in that instance, we already have the UAV terminal. So from this platform, I can purchase Satcom services. I can purchase a terminal, I can purchase the software service, and if I've got the right role, I can submit my order, and then call it UAV monitoring, and then I can create a new group or assign it to an existing mission that I want to use. Right. So I'm able to place my order, and I can see that my order is getting completed, and I get my services entered into my inventory. In my inventory, I can see all the services that I already have. So if I already had a mission called Air in European Services, I can see my services working. I can open the detail of the service from this platform. I can access my assurance data and see how this Satcom service is going and the performance of this. I can see that this particular Satcom service is used on a terminal. I can click on the terminal. I can see that the terminal that I'm using has this particular unique identification or serial number, and it's a UAV Aviator 200. I can also access my software service. I can see that if I click on my software, I can then open the software and then access the particular videos and video clip that I would have taken and access them safely. And I can also get a high-level view of the monitoring of the services. I can define a particular parameter that I want to be able to report on every month, for example. As an example, you can see that we can monitor the volume of data being used by each of the service depending on the mission. I can see with that graph that it's my land services and particularly GX for land services that are using most of my data in my services. I can get a historical view of my service and my my terminals. So if I click on a particular terminal, I can see the history of where my ship went and when, depending on the location, when my service was inactive or active. And I can have a view of my billing information and support tickets as well that I have been able to raise through this unique platform. So this is a very, very fast view of what you can do, and all the capabilities of this platform. Obviously, it can be used for satellite communications for UAVs, but it's meant to be for any type of satellite communication, any type of providers. And if I go back to my presentation, we have, during this Pacis-6 project, developed the prototype that I've just showed you, and we're planning to build this platform into our next project that is about to start, and to be able to release it for our global government and institutional user. So this was not the main focus of this demonstration. I just wanted to give you a teaser. If you're interested into having more details about Envision, or even have a full demonstration of all its capabilities, please contact me or ask Errol or Harold for my contact. Right, that's it.
Thank you very much. Very well done.
Thank you.
So as one of the final elements, we'd like to go into conclusions. And following conclusions, we'll let Harald show the video of how actually things could look with a bit more bandwidth. And we'll go a bit into why we didn't have more bandwidth in one moment. Let's say, okay, here we go. So here are the main points that we have learned from the project, but also being involved with the Satcom on board of our UAV. It takes time to find the right setup for the aircraft. I mean, there's we went quickly over the EMI issues. We had some EMI with the GNSS receiver that we needed to solve because they're quite close in frequency. We also need to find the right space, the right location. All of this integration efforts took time, and also we still have a bit more time that we should use to find an even better setup concerning the satellite connectivity and when the aircraft turns, etc. I think these are things that you just learn during the development cycle of the aircraft and the UAV. Of course, not something that the operator will be worried about. And higher bandwidth will be better. As we saw the videos, they were At that day, I think we had about 110 kilobits per second available to us. And of that 110, 50 is going to the command and control segment of the aircraft. A bit high, but that's the way it was. And for us right now, it's a bit of a black box, so we couldn't really touch it. We tried reducing the data rate for the C2, but it was just, it was there and it had to be taken. As C2 would have probably 99% of the time or higher would have priority over the video. So Harald will then show how the video could be if we had a bit higher bandwidth, so from 50 to 100 to 150 even. Part of that was also the service we had chosen to use. But the good thing is it probably won't get any worse than that. So that's a good part. So it can only get better. And the reduction of C2 data again will be quite beneficial for the live video, for the availability of the video quality to go up, and the compression needed will be more efficient. We saw that the signal delay or latency is important to control the camera. And this is something that you will have to get used to, because the data that you get is after all 2 seconds late, and when you click on something and send it back to the aircraft, time goes by again, and the command that you give is not actually the command that you wanted to give with regards to the camera control. So there could be some software to be developed that actually understands what you want to see and gives a correct command to the camera, or you can also do it through some camera training, which is maybe a bit more brute force type method. We know that backup links and plans are very important. So that's something we take with us onwards. Perhaps you need 2 backup links just in case. I should always practice emergency situations. We didn't have any emergency situations, but they're very important for the safe operation of these UAVs, especially in the kind of development cycle that we are at. So these are the main points that we take away with us for the next stage. So before I let Harald show you the video of how things could look through SMIRA with a bit higher bandwidth, we would like to ask you for just 3 minutes of your time, if you don't mind, because we'd like to ask you for some feedback. So this is how we would like for you to participate. Is I will read a statement and show it on the screen as well, and you will give a response to it from 1 to 6, where 1 is that you strongly disagree with the statement, and 6 is that you strongly agree to it. If you look on your screen, there should be a chat bubble here on the left-hand side with an orange stripe under it. There you can actually go and chat, and if you can send your replies to Ravi, who will collect them. Ravi is RDRA, I think, but in the chat window he should show up as Ravi. So beneath in the chat window you can show who you want to send the message to. So I'm just going to send a message to Ravi to check that it works. So if you can do that, that will be very beneficial. It's for us and the Envision project very important to understand how actually you would like the service and the technology and the solution to be. So, okay, the first statement is the video quality shown is sufficient for the typical mission requirements of our organization. You are from different governmental entities, and depending on what you do, it might be the quality might be good enough or not. So if you strongly agree with it, please type in S1 and 6, and if you strongly disagree with it, type in S1 and 1. And if you are somewhat agreeing to it, any number in between, of course. I hope you're giving answers to Robbie. Is everybody on board with this feedback? It would be great if we can get that. So statement number 2 is, it is sufficient that the system is responsive 95% of the time. If you agree with it, please type in S26, and if you completely disagree with it, it's 1. And S3 is that it is sufficient that the Satcom subsystem is available 95% of the time, and it might fall out 5% of the time. And statement 4 is 5 frames per second video is sufficient for our missions. Again, if you disagree, 1, and if you agree, it's 6. So S4 1 or S4 6. Okay, moving on. Here's more operational stuff. Statement 5 is 500 kilometer flight range for the UAS is sufficient. And statement 6, 1,000 kilometer flight range for the UAS is sufficient. Statement 7, if you agree, please type 6. If you disagree, 1. It is sufficient that the UAS is made flight ready within 1 hour. Is that good enough, or is it not good enough? And statement 8, it is adequate that 10 gigabytes of video is stored aboard the UAS. 1 or 6, depending if you disagree or agree with it. Statement 9, it is adequate that 50 gigabytes of video is stored aboard the UAS. Some military, or most military aircraft do not, or sorry, some military aircraft do not let you store the video on board, so everything is transmitted to the ground in case the aircraft is lost or captured, so that people won't be able to see what is there. Again, same for S10 and 11 for the flight endurances. And for statement 12, it is sufficient that the UAS is operated south of Tromsø. For some Norwegian operators, that might not be good enough, but would like to get your feedback on that. And the final statement, so please bear with us, is a wet lease where the UAS, the crew, the Satcom maritime insurance, etc., is the most interesting solution for us, comparison to just buying the UAS. If you agree with it, please type S13.6, and if you disagree, A1. And statement 14 is, it is sufficient for the UAS to be available within 1 month, if not already contracted. 1 and 6, if you disagree or agree. And number 15, it is sufficient for the UAS to be available within 1 week, if not already contracted. And finally, a monthly wet lease of 250,000 euros is reasonable for our missions. Thank you for all your feedback. And before we get questions from the audience, Harald, shall I play the YouTube video?
I think we have taken everyone's time now. Time is up. I posted the link there.
Yeah.
So unless someone explicitly states, please play the video in your browser in the GoToMeeting, I think it's better we leave people to view that link on their own. But
Okay.
it shows the potential up to 200 kilobit per second in full high definition. And it's worth pointing out again that the video that we streamed in this case was only 50 kilobit per second because of spending more on telemetry and things. But the system has potential to give you 200 kilobit, a little bit depending on subscriptions. So we show what is possible with that kind of data rate. We also have another clip in the link, which is actual video sent over the UAV 200 in a test rig. So it's sent over satellite for real. And we got around 150 kilobit or 180 kilobit per second, I think, on the best effort mode.
Yeah.
So unless someone says in the chat or something, yes, please play the video now, I think we have a... It's better to open the floor for comments if anyone has comments, I think.
All right, I'll take your suggestion. If you have, please come with your questions now. And don't be shy. No questions? Well, you know my email, so if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact me or anyone else on this webcast. And otherwise, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. Again, we're here for questions later on. If you'd like to drop us any lines, please feel free to do so. Thank you, and wish you all a very good day and the rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Jeg er vant til det.
Thank you all.
Hey, we are all alone.